This is a real-time video which will be presented in several parts as I talk through the approach I am taking to urban sketch this window scene. In part 5, I finish most of the pen work, show you one way how I correct a major perspective error, and start putting layers of luscious color on the page.
Now I'm going to put in some definition of bricks back in the corner here. And this is usually where I go into fast forward. I'm trying to talk through. This is not tedious, it's fun, but I think it can get tedious to watch. So when I'm doing areas like this, usually when I'm urban sketching, of course I still spend the same amount of time doing it, but when I edit my programs, when I'm doing these areas, I usually turn it into fast forward so it's not so boring to watch somebody put all these little lines in there, even though they're not. If I were doing this photorealistically, it would really be boring. Let's draw a definite line here because that goes clear out to there. Now this brick wall falls more this way again. And see how these slant up? And then these will probably go more straight. And there'll be a definite line here. Let's draw that as a definite line. And I have no idea how long this video is going to last. This will be one of my longer ones. But I think this has been an excellent study in perspective. There have been several questions on my page. How long does it take you to do a sketch like this? Well, it depends. I hardly ever spend more than 2 hours on a sketch. I didn't look at the time when I started this. But if I'm doing a lot of detail lineys in here and a lot of pen work, it's going to take me a little bit longer. But very rarely do I spend more than 2 hours. Now I'm just going to kind of bring my lines maybe down this way with some dashes. Make little lines that way. And then just kind of do some pen work in here. More detailed pen work here. But here again, I'm not pressing. These were really dark and they're getting lighter again as they go off this way. Now in all reality there should be a line here. And look at here. This is where my perspective gets off. This is not true. This corner should come, this canopy should come to this point right here. This is really a mistake, because that canopy is really ending over here on this wall when it really ends here in the corner. So I don't know if I can correct this or not, but I'm going to draw it like that. This area in here should be brick wall. So I'm going to see if I can correct that mistake. I don't know. I've already drawn pretty definite lines in there. I can get the watercolor up, but the lines might. So when I do something like that, I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to leave it. I'm going to show you how I attempt to correct it. And I've done this several times. I did the same type of perspective mistake on when I did this. Let's flip way back here. When I did this barn, I had this side of the roof, and it's still not true. This roof should be slanted a little bit more. This should come a little bit more. But I had the perspective of this was all off. And I corrected it, or tried to correct it. I want to put more this is not one of my better pages, but it was a fun page to do. But I had the same perspective mistake. I seem to make them when I'm doing roofs, don't I? So I have, when I do something like that, I'll get out, this is a white watercolor ground. This is Daniel Smith watercolor ground. I took it out of the bottle and put it in this little jelly jar. And it's a watercolor ground. It almost looks like a gesso, but it's not a gesso. And let's see. Let's use this brush. I'm going to put some of that right in here to white it out. And I'll have to go back over and rework this area. And I'm actually going to bring it up here. And they tell you to put this on in thin applications and let it dry. Really, what you use this for is to prepare a page that's not a watercolor page for watercolor. But I like to use it to correct mistakes when I'm out urban sketching. And I let it dry, but I do not put it on in really, really thin layers. I probably apply it more than I should. But I want to cover my lines here. So I would not say that I am doing the best thing, the true application of a watercolor ground on here. So I think I'm going to just kind of bring it up here too. See, you can do all sorts of things when you're out urban sketching. Just kind of bring that in there. I'm kind of cleaning my brush off on it. But yeah, I think that'll help correct this area. And then I'll go back in and rework it. Okay, here I am. I've just applied watercolor ground. You can still kind of see the lines in there, but I think after I rework that area, that will kind of fade into the background. But I wanted to see you how I really should put another layer of white watercolor ground on there, but I'm not going to. I'm going to leave it just like it is. I'm going to let that dry a little bit more. I'm going to work on, this is how my page looks probably after about an hour. So depending on the detail of I put on there, the second hour or the second half hour, depending on what I'm doing, I work a little bit more with defining my page. This page does not have enough color on it to suit me. So I'm going to work with this area with my grays. I'm going to put in the gray sidewalk a little bit more. So I've got out my Daniel Smith graphite gray, and I'm just going to darken this a little bit more. And this area here will be darker, but since it's wet, Sometimes I'll take my towel, and since this is cement, I can kind of blotch it in there. And that makes it look, gives it a nice texture. And then I can go back in with the more dark watercolor. As you can see here in the corners turned up, so. I think we have the store's starting to open. Okay, let's put in some grays here in the window. I like a lot more paint on my, I like a lot of color on my page. Now I like to mix a little blue for my windows. And I should have put more water in my watercolor pen. And I'm not going to worry about getting reflections in these windows today. I can actually see a lot of reflection in these windows. But I'm not going to worry about it today because I'm working on perspective today. And the sun is starting to come out, and that starts to bother me too. But your windows are rarely white. They take on a bluish gray, almost even there's reflection of the yellow ochre here in this window too. Let's put some of that yellow ochre in there. And that just sort of gives it the shape. I got the mannequins to draw in there yet. Let's put some yellow ochre in here. Okay, let's see if we can fix this area in here. I don't think this is totally dry yet, but that's all right. We'll just kind of work with it. And this area, since it's underneath of the canopy, will be much, much darker. So don't be afraid to get in there and put color down. Now, I want some more brownish color in there, so I'm going to reach over to this kind of a light brown. And I can do that because I have the white of my watercolor ground. And I'm just kind of pull that out there. I'm not worried about this yet. I still want to, now see how I'm kind of, as I bring my water brush up and down the ink lines here, it kind of gives it a gray tone. You can tell it with this down here. This wall's going to be gray here anyway. And how this is much lighter. Let's clean my brush off a little. And actually, kind of blend this area. Yes? Yes. Now let's put in the gray. This is the cement wall here. So I'm going to, it's a lighter gray. Got yellow ochre in my hand. Let's get the gray. Get a hold of it. The sun's coming out. It's getting time for me to think about quitting on this because the people are starting to come here, starting to open for business, and the sun's starting to bother me. So that tells me that to start thinking about wrapping this up. Even though it may not be exactly what I want to put in the definition here. I want to work on these windows a little bit more. I'm not quite done yet. Let's put in this. Turn it this way. Remember how I said that this smaller part of the water pipe was actually darker? That's what I'm doing now. Let's smooth this line out a little bit more. And I want this darker. Yep, here comes the sun again. And I need to stop and refill my watercolor brush. Now I'm going to take my, since this is cement, I can make it look like cement. All up in here. This is all of the cement gray. All right. Yeah, I'm getting happier with this. Kind of define these ladies here by the shading in the background. The windows. Just keep working at it. This area down here is very wet. You even use your fingers on it if you want. So let's get this off of my brush. And I want to work on the canopy a little. Now I have a bright red, so I might let a little of that gray come in there. And I like lots of color. I like to put a lot of color on my page. Now let's pick up a little dark blue and work in there. That'll help make that red look dark. And this is almost too light now, so I like to get, my brush is running out of water, but I like to get a little water on my brush and bring some of that up to tone it down, darken it just a little. It's lighter, but after all, it still is red. And let's put more red on here. This is where I start putting more color on my pages. This is darker. Okay, I could actually work some of that red down in here just to make the cement a little darker. Let's blot it out. All right, now I'm going to stop and let this dry a little and refill my water brush.